Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inside the Newsroom. I'm Joey Taylor. Inside the Newsroom is where we bring you the trending stories of the KELOLAND area, and we bring on our newsroom staff members to talk about these trending stories. They just happen to be the same stories you see every day on our newscasts and online at KELOLAND.com. First up, a Millbank Elementary student's confirmed case of measles recently could have meant several other cases among students, given how contagious the disease is. But Millbank School District Superintendent tells KELOLAND News that to the best of his knowledge, there is only that one case in the school. Dan Santella reports.
Millbank School District Superintendent Justin Downs says protection against measles, mumps, and rubella is nearly universal in the elementary school.
Millbank Elementary is over 99% immunized against MMR, and so which is very good, very high, and very encouraging. And to the best of our knowledge, we've had no spread within our school community.
And here's why that's important. According to the CDC, around 20% of unvaccinated Americans who come down with measles will be hospitalized. It's a tremendously contagious disease. However, one dose of an MMR vaccine is 93% effective against measles. With 2 doses, this rises to 97%.
Our team and our elementary nurse was a rock star through this whole process, went through and analyzed all student immunization records.
When it comes to kids in the Millbank School District, Downs says there is just the one case, and he wants parents to feel confident about gathering together.
You get a million questions. Is it safe to have basketball games? Is it safe to have youth wrestling tournaments? Is it safe? Yes, it is.
According to the State Department of Health's website, South Dakota has seen 5 confirmed measles cases in 2026, all in Grant County, which includes Millbank. The 5 cases involve kids who lived together, had recently traveled to Canada, and were not vaccinated.
All right, so we're going to bring in Dan right now. Dan, thank you so much for telling the story. I think it's one that parents really want to know about. You say the word measles, and parents, sometimes automatically just go into panic mode, kind of like we mentioned, because it is so contagious. Now, we saw how seriously the school district is taking this and what they said, but what did you learn when you were up in Millbank to really see how they were taking this? Or I guess it was Zoom, so in that interaction.
Yeah, well, the big figure that stands out from that story is 99%. That vaccination rate for Millbank Elementary. We know that vaccine works. We know it's effective. And we know then that, a 99% vaccination rate is going to be really positive for those kids and those families. And that was my biggest takeaway, the 99% figure. And I think as a secondary takeaway was, as we just heard the superintendent saying, hey, get a lot of questions. Yes, you can go to basketball. Yes, you can have wrestling meets. It's safe. And it's safe because people are taking these proactive steps to get the vaccinations that we know are safe and that we know are effective. Per the CDC, with 1 dose of vaccine, it's 93% effective against measles. 2 doses, that jumps up to 97%. And as you had mentioned a moment ago, just how contagious this disease is, it's stunning. For this story, I was looking a lot on the CDC's website and the South Dakota Department of Health's website, and it's like, whoa, the level of possible contagion here is considerable. And like you said, I think that's why parents have their concerns, which are well-founded.
Yeah, well, and so you kind of mentioned the Department of Health, and I know that we saw a letter from the Department of Health posted on the district's Facebook page. Have we heard from the Department of Health at all?
Well, I believe my colleague Carly Phillips did when she did this story last week, and she was looking at it. What forwarded this story is that we heard in an interview from the superintendent, who did thank us for our outreach and looking to chat with him about this and give him the opportunity, to talk about this. The DOH's website has a dashboard that's helpful with regard to measles. And it says, this year in 2026, 5 cases. They are all confined to Grant County, which of course includes Millbank. And so that was another resource I was utilizing a lot as I put together this story.
Yeah, well, and you mentioned it there, but the superintendent said he wants parents to feel comfortable getting together, gathering. Was there any other big takeaway for parents to really take home?
That, there's the school, I believe he used the term rock star to describe some of the school personnel and how they responded to this. And, if, there's the one case in the elementary school and then the one throughout amongst kids in the district, given how contagious the disease is of measles, that figure could easily have been much, much higher,
Yeah.
And so it's interesting the degree to which they've had success, and like he stressed, that 99% figure is, the proof's in the pudding right there, as to how, they were able to make, and I think he also said this in the interview, this could have been a really difficult situation. And, the ideal number of measles cases is 0, obviously.
Right.
No one wants even 1, but it could have been a lot more than 1.
Well, and we're thankful it's just the one case. It is, confined just to that. So thank you so much for joining us, giving us a little background on this and what we're seeing.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be on Inside the Newsroom with you for the first time, too. Welcome to our team.
For the first time. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
But still to come, political parties that's what we're going to talk about. Are they an obstacle for sheriffs, or is it no worries? We're going to have more on that after the break. Welcome back. Freeman Academy, a private institution that operated for over a century, will be closing its doors at the end of the school year. Anya Joseph was in Freeman on Monday and found out how much the academy meant to the community.
The Freeman Junior College Freeman Academy Corporation voted in a special meeting on January 31st to close the school. Board Chair Brian Paff says the decision was made due to declining enrollment coupled with financial and operational challenges that questioned the long-term stability of the school. The meeting had nearly 2 hours of discussion with perspectives of both those in favor of and against the closing. The final vote tally was 1,702 in favor of the motion to 956 against it. Only a simple majority was needed to pass the motion.
A really emotional meeting. A lot of people care deeply about the school, and everybody in the room, I should note, cares deeply about the school, regardless of which side of the discussion they were on.
Freeman Public Library children's librarian Crystal Gehring Nelson says she has a long history with Freeman Academy.
My parents went to the academy. All of my siblings and myself went to the academy. Several of us went to Freeman Junior College. I actually graduated in 1985, the year before the college closed.
Freeman resident Gary Windish has lived near the school for 40 years and says the school has been part of his life.
My oldest daughter, who has kids right now, and my youngest daughter, who has kids right now, both went to the school. So it's really sad to see it closing. It's an institution, it's history, it's just part of our heritage.
Brian says the school is working to figure out next steps for the students that live around the area, including international students.
We're working individually with them to support them through any visa processing that needs to happen should they continue to study in the United States. But also working with network schools where they might be able to enroll for the upcoming school year.
All right, we're going to bring Anya in. Anya, thank you so much for joining us. For viewers who maybe aren't familiar with Freeman Academy, I know you gave them just kind of a lowdown right there, but what would you tell people about its role that you learned over the years?
I just learned that it was a staple in the community. I feel like it was operating for 123 years. And I just think that a lot of people, like I said, that librarian, Crystal, she had her parents go there. She had her siblings go there. She went there. And if it wasn't for the fact that she moved out of the area with her family, she would have had her kids, I believe, go there. So I just feel like how much that meant to the community because of how long it was there was really important.
Yeah, well, and, it was mentioned in the story, a lot of people care deeply about this school. What was the atmosphere like when you were doing this story, when you were out there?
I probably could have went to almost any shop downtown in Freeman just to get a voice, because when I went to go see Crystal, she told me, "Oh, there's another shop. You can go talk to that owner because she went there and she was a part of like the junior college that was there 40 years ago." And I just feel like anybody I asked, like Gary, he lived right next to the school, and he honestly was telling me to move because I was trying to record a stand-up. And I was just like, "Oh, do you like, know about the school closing?" And he was like, "Yeah, my two daughters went there." And I was like, "Oh, can I grab, a bite from you?" And he was like, more than willing. So I just think that what made the story was the fact that you could really ask anybody, about that school and they would have told you.
Yeah. Is there anything that you learned that maybe you didn't have time to include in the story?
I guess I learned from Brian, the board member, that the school is going to be open or like inactive for a year just until they can find some use for the school. I feel like I wanted to elaborate on that, but there wasn't too much that I could. But I feel like one thing that I definitely wanted to be in the story was the fact that the kids are, like the staff, are helping look for the next steps or where the kids are going to go next year.
Yeah. Well, and you did include that very little bit in the very last, so that's awesome. And their last day is May 20th, correct?
Yes, that's what I was told.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this. Really, it does seem like a community that, is really sad about it and everything there. So, but don't worry. Coming up, we are going to talk about a lot more, and specifically the sheriff's race and party affiliations. So make sure you stay with us. We will be right back after the break. Welcome back to Inside the Newsroom. South Dakota is one of many states that elect a county sheriff, requiring a candidate to declare a political party. Now, digital reporter Ray Yost heard from two sheriffs and another law enforcement officer to explore how a party affiliation may impact the job and voters. And she joins us now. Ray, thank you so much for joining us. When I think of a sheriff, I don't really think of a party affiliation. So can you give us just a quick lowdown on what you learned and how party affiliation may impact the job and voters?
Well, I think that it's good that you said you don't really think of it as a political position, because the two sheriffs that I talked to and a person that works with the Sheriff's Association said you shouldn't. Their job is to interpret the law, to follow the law, and to do those things without thinking, well, how would a member of X party do this, or how would a member of Y party do this, or Z party? So it's good that you said that, because that's how they approach their jobs. The thing is South Dakota is not unusual. It requires sheriffs for an election to declare a political party, and many states do that. And I think the last time I checked was the most recent was 2018 or 2020, and 40 states at that time did require that. So really what's being asked is to declare your party. And as far as that impacting the job, I think folks can be reassured by what I heard that, again, it's a law enforcement position. It's not governed by the mechanics of a particular political party.
Yeah, well, in your research, I have your article pulled up here. You can kind of see that. But in your research, did you learn anything that might surprise voters when it comes to sheriff elections and those party affiliations? Or is it just kind of like what you mentioned of, you just have to declare that party, it's not going to impact your job?
Well, I don't, know if it surprised me. I think as we were looking at this story, kind of seeing what is the process, I was probably maybe surprised, but I didn't really realize that as many states required, sheriffs to declare a political party. I've worked in a few different states, and some required it, some didn't. I think the most that I really was familiar with maybe not declaring a political party, so I was a little maybe surprised by that, or just I learned that it was more than I thought. And again, the other piece of this is, the voters maybe do pay attention or don't pay attention. I think that's kind of up for debate, maybe as we get more polarized. So I don't know if that's surprising as much as, one sheriff said maybe years ago it was more of a factor in how people voted. He sees people evolving to looking at experience more, the candidate's track record. But when I talked to a political science professor, her concern was, in a highly polarized year like we seem to be in 2026, or as political party tensions intensify, it may have more influence than we realize with voters.
Yeah, well, and I just want to ask you one last quick question. You mentioned in your article, in talking with these people, that experience plays a role. How does experience play a role, maybe on top of party affiliation or in kind of place of that when voters look at who they're voting for?
I think that voters, if you've been living in a county, you're probably going to be possibly aware of what's happening as far as crime, or how are they handling certain situations. I think experience is a key role, and just from what talking to the sheriffs and even the professor and the Sheriff's Association representative, people want to know that you have a history of making lawful arrests, that you have a history of being responsive. One county's not always going to have the same issues as another county, so you want to be responsive, experience in being responsive to your county's needs or questions or things that they are concerns. So I think experience has a pretty big role as people do pay attention to that. And this is not my opinion, but the opinion of the sheriffs and the professor. You should be paying a role, paying attention to the role of experience.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for that insight, and thank you for joining us. Make sure you stay with us after the break. We're talking about ice racing in KELOLAND. You're watching Inside the Newsroom. Welcome back for our final story on Inside the Newsroom. A late January cold snap produced just enough ice at Saddleback near Renner to start February with a round of ice races. Travis Fossing tells us why it's been a long time coming and why it may not last.
The Sioux Valley Cycle Club offers something for all seasons, including a frozen pond for ice racing.
We're kind of the odd crew, I guess you'd say, come wintertime.
Micah Schliemann is a co-director of ice racing at the Cycle Club, where Mother Nature doesn't always play nice.
I hope and pray for a cold, snowy winter every year so that our club and our guys can get out here and ice race. We put a lot of time and effort and sponsorship into these machines, and to have them sit around because it's so nice out is just killing me, Smalls.
Saddleback resembled a sandlot last winter as the races were canceled due to a lack of ice. But the recent freeze paved the way for the first event of the new season on Sunday.
We can race on 12, 13 inches of ice, that's all right.
We're running big bikes, we're running quads, mini bikes, I think. And yeah, we're just trying to make the most of it while we can.
Aaron Murphy is an ice racing veteran. He's also part of the DIRT program and says there's no shortage of racers anxious to ride during the coldest days of the year.
Absolutely need to get their wiggles out during the wintertime. Otherwise, you get pent up, you're stuck in the house, and it's cold outside. The only way for us to have a little bit of fun is get out on the hard water.
There are more ice races on the winter calendar, both here and at Long Lake near Madison, but nothing is a guarantee.
With the approaching warmer weather, I think this could potentially be our last shot at this for the rest of the ice season, but that'll give us more time to get our dirt bikes ready to roll.
All right, and so we're going to bring in Travis. Travis, welcome. Please tell me you had a chance to race.
Oh, no. I rode dirt bike as a much younger man, but never competitively or anything like this on ice.
Nothing on ice. Did you ever want to race on ice?
No, not really. I didn't even know it was a thing until I came over to South Dakota many years ago. But it looks like a lot of fun, but I'd rather be the person watching than competing.
I think I understand what you mean. all joking aside, though, how did you find the story? Because, like you, I had never really heard of ice racing before.
Well, our photojournalist Kevin Kiergaard knows all things racing, both sprint cars in the summer and something like this in the wintertime. So he's in the run with a lot of these people, and he knows when these races are going on. He went out there on Sunday and was able to talk with some of the competitors and film some of the races, and brings me along for the ride, so to speak.
So what stood out to you most when you guys were filming and really looking into the story?
Well, I mean, you got to be impressed by the speed and just how these drivers are able to stay upright. They've got the studs on the tires, so they're able to get some traction out there. But just the excitement with the event as a whole. Everybody is just happy to be out there. This has been a long time coming. It's been a few years since they've been able to compete here locally out near Renner. They have gotten some races in up in the Chester, Madison area, but this doesn't happen all that often. They can put together a schedule like Micah was saying, but doesn't mean it's always going to happen year in and year out. It's all dependent on the weather, and they have more races scheduled, but it may or may not happen. It's supposed to get warm this week.
Yeah, and so maybe what is something viewers might not notice on first watch of your story?
Oh, boy. At first watch with the story. Well, I think it's just the fact that you've got these people that are so committed to this sport. And one thing they talked about as well is just the fact that there's so many volunteers that have to be a part of it to make sure the track is ready and that concessions are being sold. So it becomes an event out there. But these are people that are really just wanting to be out there. They're big time into racing, whether it's on dirt bikes or sprint cars or whatever fashion in the summertime, but they're all looking for something to do in the wintertime. And this is a way to get out and feed that need for speed, I guess.
Well, you mentioned you also, have a little history with dirt bikes. Is there anything you learned about ice racing that was unexpected?
Well, nothing that is going to get me on a bike anytime soon. But, you've got the motorcycles, you've got three-wheelers, you've got quads, you've got ATVs. There's just a whole bunch of different vehicles. And the neat part is it's kids, it's women, it's men, ages 5 to 65 and on up. So, I mean, it's really a sport meant for anybody that has an interest and a passion for it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and giving us a little insight on ice racing.
You bet.
Maybe you'll get out on the ice next winter.
Maybe.
Well, that is all the time we have for Inside the Newsroom. Join us every weekday at 1 p.m. Until then, have a great day, everyone.